First, a caveat. If any of you are South Korea scholars or, are from South Korea or have spent a lot of time in South Korea, I've been to South Korea many times. I used to do business in South Korea, but I am no expert. I'm familiar with the country. Like I said, I've been there. I don't speak South Korean. One of my very closest friends is South Korean, but I haven't talked politics with him in several years. So I just, what I know here and what I'm sharing with you is just basically what I've picked up in the media over the years and certainly today. So part of this is opinion, part of it is, this is what's going on. So here, let me start with the opinion part. In my opinion, Mr. Yoon, who is the President Yoon of South Korea, is basically South Korea's version of Donald Trump. He was elected in 2022 in a squeaker election. He won by a very small margin, and he immediately started going after the press. He called the press the fake news. In fact, this is from today's Washington Post. From today's New York Times. I'll just read it straight through. Mr. Yoon, a former prosecutor, won an extremely close presidential election in 2022, bringing the country's conservatives back to power. Okay, so you got that. He replaced President Moon Jae-in, a progressive leader who served a single 5-year term. So this is like Trump replacing Biden. Soon after he was elected, again, this is from the New York Times today. Soon after he was elected, however, Mr. Yoon began turning to lawsuits, state regulators, and criminal investigations to clamp down on speech that he called disinformation, efforts that were largely aimed at news organizations. Police and prosecutors repeatedly raided the homes and newsrooms of journalists whom his office had accused of spreading fake news. And then what happened in April is, I think, what actually provoked this. And let me just share with you a couple little pieces here from a piece from the Financial Times back on April 10th. This was the day of the election when President Yoon, who's currently in power, lost the parliament. Okay, so when he came into power, just like Donald Trump, is going to come into power on January 20th with the House and Senate. When Yoon came into power in 2022, he had the parliament. He had the South Korean parliament. But in April of this year, okay, now I'm reading from the Financial Times. This is a piece by Christian Davies and Song Yoon Jong-ah. A convicted former minister vowing revenge against conservative President Yoon Suk-yeol has helped deliver a resounding defeat to the South Korean leader in parliamentary elections. Former Justice Minister Cho Kuk, convicted on corruption charges, campaigned to end Yoon's, quote, prosecutorial dictatorship. So what happened, again, just to recap, Yoon becomes president in 2022. He's a hardcore right-winger. He's following a progressive president. He immediately starts cracking down on the press. He starts having his police raid the homes of people like me and people like, the folks on this network and the people, other people you listen to, particularly opinion writers. So this opposition, former Justice Minister Cho Kuk, leads this big campaign against Yoon and actually defeats him in the parliament. The main opposition Democratic Party of Korea, that's the more progressive party, the DPK. The PPP, the People's Party is Yoon's party. The DPK is projected to win 176 seats in the 300-seat National Assembly against 109 seats for Yoon's ruling People Power Party, the PPP, as voters voice their anger both at his authoritarian actions and the rising cost of living. So that was from April 10th. Okay. So now, back to today, Yoon today decided enough is enough, because what's been happening is every time he tries to pass legislation, more of his right-wing agenda including massive budget cuts, the parliament says, no, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to do it. And so finally, he reached the point where he said, okay, that's it. I'm declaring martial law. Now, the martial law that he has declared in South Korea this morning, our time, bans, and this is a quote from the martial law declaration, bans all political activities, including those of the National Assembly, local councils, political parties, and all demonstrations. I'm telling you, Donald Trump right now is taking notes. It adds that all media publications will be subject to the control of Martial Law Command, which is the Army. So all media is now under the control of the South Korean Army. He said that he would, quote, eliminate anti-state forces as quickly as possible and normalize the country. In other words, he's going to start arresting the opposition. He has been at odds with the opposition majority in Parliament, which last week voted to cut almost $3 billion from his proposed 2025 budget, a move seen as an attempt to rein in the president. This is from Christian Davies over on the Financial Times today. Accusing Yoon of authoritarian tendencies, the left-wing party focused their proposed cuts on the office of the president, the national prosecutors, and the police. So again, President Yoon has been using his power and his office and his prosecutors to go after the press and to go after opposition politicians, saying that they're communists and that they're leftists and that they are trying to destroy Korea, South Korea. And on Tuesday night, last night, or this morning, our time, President Yoon pledged to, quote, eradicate pro-North Korean forces and protect the constitutional democratic order. So now what he's saying is the equivalent of Donald Trump saying Democrats like Mexicans. Yoon is saying that the left-wing parties in South Korea and their advocates and allies in the media are actually fans of North Korea, which is complete BS. But that's what's happening, as far as I can tell, in South Korea right now. Now, like I said, my experience with and expertise with regard to South Korea is quite limited. So, if you know a whole lot more than I do about South Korea, please give me a shout. And, I'll ask Jeremy to Jeremy's answering the phones today, ask him to prioritize your calls.